An absolutely beautiful and brisk morning greets the competitors in the GT World Challenge America powered by AWS series as we get ready for qualifying here at Sonoma Raceway. Hi everybody and welcome to GT World Challenge America. Once again, powered by AWS, and this weekend sponsored by CrowdStrike, qualifying for round 5, and the cars have just been released out onto their qualifying run for the track. You're obviously going to be a couple of laps here in this cool morning, and it is pretty chilly out there right now, Cal. And this track, not known for a lot of grip to start with, they're going to have to be a little bit cautious in the early going.
Yeah, certainly it'll probably take an extra lap to get those Pirelli P0s right in their prime spot. But nonetheless, I think the track should be exceptionally quick. Ambient temps only around 61, 62 degrees, and this will probably be the nicest setting that they'll have all weekend long, because once we get to this afternoon, for the race, it will certainly start to warm up a little bit. The track is known for being very abrasive, Greg, and tire degradation and managing those tires will certainly be a key. There will be a mandatory 4-tire change during the middle of the race when the driver change happens, so you just got to look after them for yourself. You're not caring for them for your teammate as well.
Looking here at Shelby Blackstock in the Racer's Edge Acura NSX, the Acura Accelerated Services entry here, and something we haven't seen from this team at all this season is in one of the practice sessions, they were at the very back of the pack.
Yeah, and I tried to touch base with the team, didn't get any feedback this morning in terms of why they were at the back of the pack. Yes, I would have to think it was just they were doing maybe a run on old tires, and certainly between fresh sticker tires and old tires, it can be a 2 to 3 second delta, and that's what we saw there in that second session. So don't be surprised to suddenly see this team towards the top. They did have the 3rd fastest time in the first practice session yesterday.
And the morning session tended to be just a little bit quicker than the afternoon, as you would expect with the heat. Just to give you all a reference point, fastest lap set in qualifying last year was a Pro-Am driver, was Matt Campbell in the Wright Motorsports Porsche. He turned a 1:36.672, so that's a good target time. And nobody has been close to that in either of the practice sessions, but as you just explained, Cal, obviously you're on different missions during practice, working on different programs, and you may not necessarily have thrown in a absolute flyer for outright pace. And the track configuration and a year's difference in grip and everything, it all plays into it, doesn't it?
It certainly does, and I like this configuration. I really like the long run down into the turn 11 hairpin. I think creates a nice overtaking opportunity. Bit more challenging. The S's typically peel off there to the right. Here you see the brake zone for turn 9. It's a little complex here. Try and run the curb a little bit, but if you abuse it too much, they will delete your qualifying time. We saw that with some of the GT4 cars here yesterday.
And through turn 10, which if you run the original S's, that is a absolute gut check corner. It's a little bit tamer now, but still a great corner. And then here's that long run you're talking about. Really has promoted some great passing that we've seen throughout here since they started running that again last year.
It really has. There's some good overtaking opportunity around this racetrack, and particularly later in the going when different drivers have certainly managed their tires to a different extent. But obviously in qualifying, you're not topping the car up with fuel. It's on relatively light load. Does have to get through 2 15-minute segments, so it's the lower graded driver going first, but in this case you got 2 silver rated drivers in Blackstock and Hinman, which has proven to be pretty efficient in terms of their overall results. Talking about results, these guys coming off a brilliant victory at VIR and now are tied for the lead in the championship. Yeah,
their first overall win as a pairing, and they really are liking this next evolution version of this Mercedes-AMG GT3 machine. Say it just suits the driving styles for both of them just that much better, and it's been proven by the pace they've been showing. Right now, Jerome Bleekemolen has turned the fastest time in the 14 Global Motorsports Group Porsche at a 1:40.952. So I think these next laps are the ones where we're going to really see the time start to tumble a bit.
Yes, certainly, and a little bit not sure if timing and scoring is accurate because Bleekemolen is rated higher than Sofronis, so I would have thought it should be
good point.
Sofronis in the car right now for this first session, so we'll try and get a check on that to see if it is Jerome or whether it's James behind the wheel of the GMG Porsche right now.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Should have caught that myself. Fuentes now jumps to the top, and again, we're at this point here where we're going to see now what George Kurtz is able to do. And boy, the defense he had to put on in that race in VIR after that restart was fierce, and he was up to the task. See if he's up to the task to jump to the top of the charts here.
Well, Well, that's the key. It'll just build a lot of confidence for George. And last year wasn't their best season. They got the new Evo kit, and as you mentioned, it seems to be suiting them better. Got some test time underneath their belts, and you can see that in Colin Brown's performances as well. There's his dad, Jeff, with the darker of the face mask on. In the middle, there's Colin to his left.
And Blackstock goes to the top at a 39 flat, a 1 minute 39.009 in that number 93. And we did get confirmation this is actually James Sofronis in the GMG Racing.
See that little twitch there as they turn in for turn one. Very difficult corner, and then as you crest that hill, looks like it's no problem, but when you're down low, sitting in the cockpit of the race car, you're just looking at the landscape there. You really can see the edge of the road, so it's just all about your lines and having the car placed in the right places. He gets a little bit sideways there, coming over the top of 3A. Little squirt down the hill, immediately on the brakes, get it turned in for turn 4, and then you're on your way, heading towards that carousel. Look at the elevation change you encounter here as a driver. It's immense.
And that's the level of commitment you've got to have in 3A, and it is, you're dancing on the edge for sure. Blackstock, and we talked about that 138.009, but do keep in mind that Sofronis at Coda in that first race in the season opener put this car in the overall pole, so he's up to it.
He certainly is, and they scored a victory there, and were disappointed not to sweep the weekend, but great to see them back. Busy weekend for GMG. Got 8 entries here this weekend across all of the classes, pipping their own record of 7 back in 2013.
And watching now, Blackstock in the first 2 segments has just set outright best, so see what he does here. A 38.608 for Shelby Blackstock, and has lowered that time now. We'll see what Sofronis is able to put up here. Currently sits 3rd. Fuentes has slipped into the middle in the number 1 Hublot Ferrari from TR3 in Squadra Corsa.
See the green on Sector 1, that means it's his personal best. He has embedded his personal best in Sector 2. Let's see what he gets across the stripe hat. A bit slower.
Just a, yep,
10th
exactly.
off. He lost something in Sector 2 there, and that just meant that he wasn't able to pip his previous best. Look at the elevation change there, and then you get the big compression as you're turning in, massive grip. Then what do you do with it? If you commit too much, you're just going to run out of road. Wonderful rhythm as you come up over that hill, and just on the gas, immediately back to the brakes, bleed off the brakes, and try and roll speed through the apex there so you don't overslow the car.
And Martin Fuentes coming off of an immense charge late in the going at VIR in that second race, dealing with an overheating gearbox, and he was still able to run down a pack of cars and get right in the mix. And see what he does here. Already sits 2nd, and he comes through. That lap just a little off of his best, and watching Fred Pordad, who he was absolutely on form in that first race at qualifying in VIR. Just showed some great pace.
He really did. Then he had that suspension issue, and that cost him dearly. But nonetheless, I think this team, big drama here for the Ferrari.
Oh man, yes.
I think that's engine smoke, tire.
It sure looks like it. Watch here. Oh.
Yeah, I think he's dropping oil maybe on his. We'll have to wait and see if it's a suspension issue or whether it's a motor issue. Sounded a little off song to me as well, but let's take a look. That's a wake-up call early in the morning.
Ooh, yeah, that section of track is
super quick.
Deceptively so, isn't it? Yeah. I'm trying to get a good look here. Well, that's coming off of that left rear, isn't it?
The angle of the tire looks okay, so it's a weird one.
That's unfortunate because he had a good run going. Sofronis, as we were watching that, has jumped back into 2nd, turning a 139.042. But still, that's a pretty significant chunk off of Blackstock's time. So look at David Askew. Hasn't really set a representative time yet. He waited a little bit to get out, teaming with Ryan Dial.
The driver who's really found his comfort zone this year. Works really hard at his craft, sold his business recently so he can dedicate even more time to racing, and he takes it very, very seriously. Whenever there's an open weekend, he wants to do lapping days and just continue to improve. Avid sailor.
Right now, Poor Dad is on the AM pole. There's only one silver entry as well, and that's Blackstock right now. Then it is Sofronis, then Fuentes. Second and third overall, but first and second in Pro-Am. George Kurtz is now third in Pro-Am. And Ziad Gandour, who is running with Jeff Siegel, is fourth in Pro-Am. The second of the TR3 Ferraris.
Big news this week, just announced that Jeff will be returning to Le Mans, so congratulations to him. Everyone is on their bucket list to get back there. He's had success in the past, and teaming up with a couple of teammates that he knows very well with the WeatherTech Ferrari.
Kurt's on the hustle right now. Set a personal best in that first sector.
He's going to need to click one together here, so it should be the sweet spot time in terms of those tires, but time is not on his side, so he needs to get a good representative lap in. His teammate Colin Brown has been leading the practice sheets here this weekend. Oh, just in a little bit too deep. That cost him dearly. Couldn't get to that first apex. Just got to regroup here. Try and complete this lap and get something a little bit quicker, but then I think there's more time on the board for George here. I think just clean up a lap.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're watching this now, knowing that he's going to have to put another lap in. Let's get down to Ryan with an update on Fuentes.
So the car has arrived in the pit lane, and the crew has gone to work. Evidently, there is not any concern about any kind of fluid leak. And actually, just looking at the car stationary, it has been here for a while, and I don't see anything under the car at this point. So they think there was some damage done perhaps by a curb over the course of that spin, and that's what they're really looking at right now in the suspension here in the left rear, trying to make sure that car is ready to go for Rodrigo Baptista, who is getting suited up. So he appears, at least at this moment, to believe he will get a qualifying run in his segment of this qualifying session. So that's relatively good news as far as this is concerned, and it doesn't seem like it's anything catastrophic where the car is losing fluid.
Not sure whether he was just a little bit wider, just by a few inches, and just got into the more bumpy part of the entry there to the corner. But there was, you could see the smoke or something emanating from the right rear. Then he goes for the right, and then suddenly there's more smoke whenever he loads the car up.
Well, you wonder, yeah, I think if he was wide, hit some bumps, and that smoke was tire rub and the compression, and it just got away from him. And then it looks like there's a little damage maybe to the left rear diffuser area that could have been rubbing the tire as well. So
it's a weird one.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully, as Ryan said, the car is in good enough shape that Baptista can get out and hustle it around. He had a great race here in the first race last year. Showed some very good speed in the qualifying run last year as well. So looking forward to that as David Askew now up on the board with an official lap, and this one should be.
We got time to finish this lap off and squeak another one in, but he needs to just get a good run in. The only two cars out on the race circuit right now are the two DXDT Mercedes.
So it's Blackstock on the overall pole and silver pole. Sofronis second overall, but the Pro-Am pole provisionally. Fuentes third overall, second in Pro-Am. And fourth overall is Poor Dad, which would put him on the AM pole in that Right Motorsports entry.
See Askew across the line there. Best lap time so far, 142.7. George Kurtz has gone down to a 140.6, but he was actually fastest overall in Sector 2, and now he's cleaned up Sector 1, got his personal best there, so if he can just clean this lap up, he could potentially jump up the grid here a little bit. There you see it, personal best Sector 1. He had purple in Sector 2 on the previous lap, so the pace is there if he can just mimic that. A bit wide there, just needs to tidy things up just a little bit. Just breathe the throttle there through the S's. Yeah, a little bit off his personal best there in Sector 2. Yellow means you haven't matched your previous best. That's a lot cleaner through there. This could be a better lap for George Kurtz. Is it enough to jump him up ahead of Poor Dad? He needs to find half a second over his previous best. 140.0 is Portad's best qualifying time. 140.5 for George Kurtz. This is a pretty good lap. It's going to be very tight.
This current was a 140.6. See if he betters that. He does to a 140.163. Doesn't move him up the order at all.
Only a 10th off of Fred's best,
Yes.
but that was a decent lap. I think if it mimicked his second sector there from the lap before, it would have been enough.
Let's see what Askew was able to do here. 142.7, his previous best. 142.1. So that should do it. Everybody has seen the checker, whether they're in pit lane or come across at this stage. Ziad Gandour in the TI Capital TR3 Racing Ferrari sits 6th overall, 4th in the Pro-Am category. But Shelby Blackstock, another overall pole for the silver driver at a 138.608, and by a fairly decent margin, about 0.4 of a second back to James Safronis. And there you take a look at the run order, and obviously want to call attention to, everybody realizes that the entry numbers are down, but it's, this COVID pandemic is really wreaking havoc with travel for drivers that are particularly doing international. The team car to this one of Martin Barkey and Kyle Marcelli, obviously they aren't here, and the reason is, again, some travel issues coming from Canada. It's just really put a pinch on the entries here, but those that are here have made a supreme effort to do so, and it's greatly appreciated. And Shelby Blackstock putting in an absolutely superb qualifying run here and putting that car on the outright pole in the AM category. Fred Portad continuing his good turn of speed. Really been enjoying watching that. And then right here, George Kurtz. As you said, Cal, in the second sector, he was really fast. He's just been able to tie everything together. Who knows where he may have been. And then James Safronis, well, he was just on it.
He was. Great to see him back, and it's been a busy few weeks getting all of those cars ready. 8-car entry. Here we see the moment for Martin Fuentes heading up the hill. Something going on that right rear. Just loses control, and the big key is going to be if there's any damage inherently on that race car for Baptista to run in this second segment here today for qualifying.
And then late in the session, David Askew trying to move up the order just a little bit, hustling that car as much as possible. And now new tires go on and new drivers get on board. And in the Pro-Am combinations, it will be the pro driver that will be climbing on board in this one. And you can see Max Root right there will take over for Fred. And Max has been something of a revelation this year. He is a quick young man.
Yes, he's a man who's going places, certainly. A lot of great feedback from people who have worked with him in the past, including John Wright, Pat Long, and a young man who has really taken to this Porsche. Certainly you'd have to believe that Porsche Motorsports have got their eye on him as potentially a person who can follow in the footsteps of the only American Porsche factory driver, Pat Long, down the road. So important days for him to continue to run and get in the mix with some of these more established and experienced pros when he does get behind the wheel. And talking about one of the best, look at that young man, Trent Hinman, now climbing aboard, coming off a GT3 championship last year. Young man who slipped through the fingers of BMW. He was associated with BMW 5-6 years ago, and they elected to put all their money on Jesse Krohn, who's certainly been doing a great job. And Trent was hunting around a little bit, but he's found a great home with HPD, Honda Performance Developments, and the Acura brand.
Yeah, he's just been fast in anything and everything he's ever driven, and they were wise to snap him up. Talking about Max Root, he gets a great comparison here because basically in that same car, the Wright Motorsports Porsche last year, Matt Campbell, who was the pro driver in the Pro-Am combination overall pole for the second race last year. So this is going to be a good test for Max.
It will, and this is just fun. I mean, to drive this racetrack at this time of the day, perfect conditions, it's giddy-up time.
The interesting thing is, the drivers we talked to after yesterday said that this track even less grip than they had last year. They said it's as low grip as they can remember. And they said it's been fun because the car's moving a lot, and you're sliding it and drifting it even in a higher downforce car. And they said, but it sure keeps you on your toes.
It's like me, it's getting old, Greg.
There you go.
A few more cracks this year. A few more wrinkles.
Exactly. Well, here we go. There's a look at Hinman, that Acura Accelerated Services Racer's Edge machine. And you've got young Max Root and Colin Brown, Ryan Dial, Jerome Bleekemolen will all be out, along with Jeff Siegel in the TR3 Ferrari number 24. See, at Gondor, just wanted to mention he's driver that's come up from Ferrari Challenge and has had some real success in that championship category, and has also done some international racing, running Ferrari Challenge in Europe and Asia, and also done some rallying in the Middle East. So he's a interesting character, that's for sure. Great to have him in this championship. And,
see him working the wheel there,
absolutely.
Greg. It's subtle in terms of not really changing the direction of the car right now, but he's just really trying to generate some front tire temperature there, just soaring on the wheel. But look at him. You can see his gloves moving. The car's really not reacting, so the tire temperature isn't there yet to make the car respond, but he's just really trying to get some energy into those tires.
Some little tricks of the trade you learn is how do you do that. And some of it, you get offline here, a little bit of that junk and the like too, so you need to, it's not just getting heat in the tires, is it? It's making sure they're clean.
Right now, I'd anticipate seeing fast laps like lap 2 or 3, certainly not this opening throwdown. Somewhat will depend on what tire pressure you would like to start this session with. If you feel that the car can come in quickly and maybe you haven't got enough fuel to do the complete 15 minutes, you may elect to try and run a slightly higher tire pressure, get the energy in early, not expecting to do the full 15 minutes. So different strategies can be employed here.
And that's the one area that the engineers and everybody have to really be on top of, because you do change tires after that first session, but you can't refuel. So you need to have something determined here. Are we going to run light for both sessions and really run some risk here? Are we going to make sure we have enough gas to get through both but carry a little more weight?
But then the key is the tires have to be used in the race as well. So if you go for the full 15 minutes and how abrasive this track is, you're going to take a lot of performance out of those tires before you even get the green flag this afternoon. Well, actually, the tires for this run would be for tomorrow's race. So the first segment will determine the grid positions for today's race, and this qualifying segment is all about grid position for tomorrow.
Hinman purple in both the first and second sectors. And as we say that, Jeff Siegel on his first flyer goes purple in the first sector, so should be a decent lap for Hinman. See what he puts together, but Siegel in the 24 is flying Hinman a little wide there. See what he does. Up and around and through the timing beam. 137.961.
That's a pretty tasty lap there.
Yes, it is.
A bit quicker than his teammate did in that first session. So again, maybe they've elected to try and get that time done early and see him peel off and not do too many laps on that set of tires. Good to see this Ferrari. I don't see any smoke from it right now.
Yep. You notice one of those vanes, if you will, in the left rear of the diffuser. They had
to see him fighting the front. Had to just let the front have its head there. He couldn't afford to just continue to put the steering input, otherwise the tail would have come round on him. So he hit that little bump, just had to let the car go straight for a second or a split second and then turn again.
Siegel jumps to second at a 137.985 in the number 24 Ferrari. So that is a very close margin, 24 1/1000ths of a second separating Hinman and Siegel.
And trying to really recollect what happened to Fuentes. Maybe he just got a little bit wide, so we saw the smoke from the car bottoming out, and then maybe there was some damage to one of those vanes that the mechanics have been able to take care of. Because it's bizarre, we saw smoke and then it continued after the spin.
You got to imagine that maybe that vane got bent and was up onto that tire then.
Yep.
So they've clipped that vane off, which will affect the downforce just a little bit, but it at least was a relatively easy fix for them, if you will. See what he does here.
Looks like a good one.
All right. through the stripes. Currently at, see what he does. Yeah, jumps to third at a 38.2. A 38.2. It puts him a couple of tenths clear of Max Root.
Yeah, but Hinman just lowered the bar further at 37.3 now is the fast lap. Max Root about second off of that at a 38.36. Colin Brown jumps up into the 37s immediately. So it's Hinman, Brown, Siegel, Baptista, Dial, Root, Bleekemolen.
Bleekemolen is just now on a significant lap.
A little bit of understeer. That corner will typically induce some understeer, just the road falling away there. Looks like Max is trying to struggle to get the car turned in.
Dial just improved his time a little bit. Bleekemolen now into the 38s at a 138.3. Here's Trent. How much more does he push this, Cal? He's now, what, 4 tenths clear of Colin Brown?
Yes. Let's have a look at his sector. A little bit slower sector 1. Fastest overall sector 2. Fastest speed down the straightaway into the trap there as well at 210 kilometers an hour. So this is a pretty good lap that he's putting together here. There you can see he's just marginally outside his best in sector 1. Could be enough to lower the bar a little bit if he's got a clean, good traction there off turn 11. 37.36 was his previous best in the pole position so far.
Missed it by a couple tenths.
Yeah, I'd probably suggest that you might have peaked the tires now, and any more laps is going to take some of the bite out for the race tomorrow.
All right, let's see what Colin Brown puts together here. Had a personal best in this first sector. And improves his time to a 137.708, still second behind Hinman, but sort of solidifies his hold on the provisional pole for Pro-Am. Baptista just a couple of tenths off, then Siegel. Wondering if we're going to see, I was just looking at, Bleekemolen now puts one together and dips into the 37s at a 137.954, good for third overall, second in Pro-Am.
Colin really floats some speed in there, maybe a bit too much. I think he had to then control at mid-corner. Kind of get a little bit of a reset in the middle there. It's like double apex corner there through the carousel, but he really took a lot of speed in. Just asking a little bit more from those tires than maybe they were able to give him. Bleekemolen running a slightly tighter line through there, doesn't attack it quite as hard, doesn't get out as wide, so more of a consistent speed through the carousel than the way Colin Brown was attacking it. Super smooth here.
Sure does.
Getting the power down. So the real key is just getting the car straight and getting all of the steering input out of the car as soon as you can out of these lower speed corners. Just into the rev limiter, you can hear it there.
Yep.
So when the tires are good, suddenly those gear ratios that you have in, you don't have quite enough length in them to will cost you a little bit, but almost helps you when you get to the brake by the engine being on the rev limiter right there. So they're in the sweet spot. This could be a nice lap for Bleekemolen. He needs to find a couple of tenths to move up to second and about half a second to grab the pole.
This second sector was his personal best. See what he does in this final sector. Not quite as quick, actually. A couple of tenths off his best at a 38 flat in that one.
Seems like everyone's struggling to get any more lap time out of the car after about the third lap, and you're just wasting your breath really by staying out there, and certainly wasting some tire tread for the very important race here tomorrow.
Yeah, Baptista in that last lap, he turned his personal best at a 137.977. And that's good for fourth overall, third in Pro-Am. But one of the things that we've been hearing, Cal, is this track with the abrasiveness of it, and as good as these Pirelli P0 slicks are, with the level of abrasiveness of this track, there's a pretty substantial drop-off once you hit that sweet spot. And you just can't, at this level, you're not going to find that time yourself when you're up against this level of drivers, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, looking at Collins' first 2 sectors, they're just a sniff off his personal best, so he's going to keep at it here, see what he can come up with, but might struggle to improve. Right now, he's second on the grid, fastest lap of 137.78. See what he hits the time clock with this time. Imagine a low 38 possibly.
37.9.
So a couple of tenths off his best. So you think you're perfecting the lap, you're maximizing the grip that you have available to you, but it's just marginally less than you've had earlier in the session. So it gets to be a little bit frustrating. You think, oh, that was the perfect lap, the clean lap, but just no longer is the grip and the bite still there.
He was quickest in both of the practice sessions. So to find himself now sitting second, I'm sure is a bit of a personal annoyance. But he really diamonds that corner, doesn't he, the carousel?
Yeah, he really takes big speed in and then collects it together in the middle of the corner and then re-attacks the gas pedal on the way out to get this run down into turn 7. You see it just a tick off his best in sector 1. I'd imagine his dad on the horn is saying, Colin, just bring it in. I don't really see much point in continuing to push right now. Yeah, it looks like he's eased out of it.
I was going to say, I think he just got the memo. So, Hinman putting together that lap here, and they have just been awfully effective here. I mean, basically, they've, in the 4 races preceding this, 2 at Circuit of the Americas, 2 at Virginia International Raceway, the only time their pole hasn't been overall was when Safronis pipped him in that first race. So they're keeping a pretty remarkable streak alive here, getting basically a 4th straight overall pole.
Well, the car is really good. Racer's Edge have really adapted to GT3 racing very, very quickly. I mean, it's a wonderful group led by John Meraki. They've got a great team here with the 2 drivers with the silver category. I mean, I think over the offseason, everyone looked at that silver potential as to what it could do. And particularly when you got silver graded drivers in Hinman and Shelby Blackstock, that's a pretty tough combination to beat.
Yeah, that's that's a pretty stout pairing to be sure. So nice run though by Colin Brown for the provisional pole in Pro-Am for race number 2 on the weekend, which will be round 6 in the championship. Nice to have Jerome Bleekemolen back, and he will start 3rd overall, 2nd in Pro-Am. Baptista 4th overall, 3rd in Pro-Am in the Hublot Ferrari. Then Jeff Siegel in the number 24 GI Capital Ferrari. And Max Root will start 6th overall, pole in the AM category. And Ryan Dial, I think, is probably going to be a little bit disappointed with the qualifying times that he put in here. We know what he's capable of, and they must have just missed something there, Cal.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the times, they haven't really been towards the top of the sheets. Had a 5th out of the 7 cars running and 6 in practice 1 and 2 yesterday, so probably just lost a little bit of the balance compared to the other car. And around a racetrack like this, you really need the comfort factor with you. You have to attack the car. You've got to finesse the car around here, but you have to attack the racetrack. And I would assume that Ryan's just not got the balance that he's looking for at this stage. But they can get some feedback from the other car, look at the setup, see if there's any differences, and maybe tune on it a little bit for this afternoon's race.
And again, a doubleheader weekend, so we get to see these cars run twice. We'll see the first run this afternoon, and then again tomorrow. There's a look at Ryan Dial doing a little debrief while he sits in the car. It's a gorgeous looking machine, just in that reflective black for DXDT. And it's that team that also fields the 04 of Colin Brown and George Kurtz, the CrowdStrike AWS Mercedes. Big weekend here for CrowdStrike, the sponsor of the entire event here, and the official cybersecurity provider for the series. And the interesting thing is they have these summits that they do all the time at these races where they bring in top tech people and everything. Well, of course, this is awfully close to to tech country in general. They're based nearby here, but with the COVID protocols and the like, which everybody are following beautifully, and we're so thankful for the teams and the series and the tracks that are all working together to make this happen. You can't bring a big group of people in and have one of those summits, so how are they doing it? Virtually. So there's lots of people that are here this weekend on a virtual level for CrowdStrike and being a part of it all as we take a look at the results from the second qualifying run that will set the grid for race 2 that will come up on Sunday. And in the races, we're going to have the GT Sports Club in their second weekend of racing. We'll be running with them in the races essentially, but they will have their own qualifying session, which will be coming up shortly. And we take a look at some of the highlights. And in the early going, Max Root in that Wright Motorsport Porsche was able to put in a decent lap early, and eventually was able to drop the time just a little bit and find himself with that pole in the AM class. But these were the guys, when Shelby got out, turned it over to Trent Hinman, and Trent went out, and after a nice easy installation lap or two, put in some good laps.
He did, and certainly great to see GMG back with that familiar number 14. Jerome Bleekemolen did a nice job. He'll line up third for the second race of the weekend. And Baptista, after a moment for his teammate who went off in turn 1, the team got that car turned around and in good shape for Baptista to put in a really quick time in the pink little Ferrari. Jeff Siegel getting to Le Mans soon. Right now his focus is on Sonoma Raceway.
Absolutely, and Colin Brown staying out, giving it his all for a couple extra laps, and was not able to get to the inside pole, but starts on last.